What's up? It's Ashlyn Makes Food, and today we're making some Twix bars. Let's do this. For the full list of ingredients and recipe, check the description of this video. I was craving something sweet. Instead of looking up a new recipe of some elaborate dessert, I looked around my kitchen to see what ingredients I had in stock and thought of a recipe I could make with what I already had. I've made these Twix bars before, but not in probably 10 years. I remember last time the crust was pretty thick, so I wanted to make a thinner crust. So instead of making these in a 9x13 pan, I ended up using a cookie sheet and just didn't fill it all the way. It worked out so well, and I loved this version so much more because, like I said, the crust was thinner. This recipe has 3 parts to it. We have the shortbread crust, the caramel, and the chocolate sauce. If you're unfamiliar with a shortbread crust, it is a crumbly, buttery pastry base made from just flour, butter, sugar, and salt. However, in my case, I am putting in vanilla extract. That way my shortbread has a vanilla hue to it. You may see this and think there is absolutely no way that is going to make a crust. And trust me, I thought that the first time I made this too. Shortbread gets its name from butter, which shortens gluten strands to create a tender, melt-in-your-mouth crumb. And it is typically pressed into your pan instead of rolling it out like you would a normal crust. You should use cold butter when you make this. That way you can cut the butter in with a pastry blender and it will create small chunks of butter. I'm doing this by hand because I don't have a pastry cutter. So if you have a pastry cutter, I would recommend using that. Otherwise, you can do it by hand. Kitchen tools are a mere suggestion and not a requirement. Because when you think about it, back in the 1800s, they probably didn't have a pastry cutter. So we're doing it by hand. You just want to crush it up until the mixture resembles like a chunky kind of sand. We don't want any big chunks of butter, but you don't want there to be no chunks of butter. To the naked eye, this does not look like a crust, and trust me, I know, but we need to press it into a crust. Whether you're using a baking sheet like I am or a 9x13 pan, make sure it is lined with parchment paper. That way it is easy to remove, which makes cutting these much easier. And it will help prevent burning. You'll just want to press this as hard and as flat as you can, trying to make it as even as possible. And since I'm making this in a cookie sheet, it is not filling up the entire pan, but if you're making this in a 9x13, it will fill up the entire pan. Once you have it pressed to your liking, go ahead and bake that, and step 1 is done. The shortbread is ready. Let's take it out of the oven. You'll know your crust is done once it is slightly golden brown, and especially around the edges, you should start to see that turning more golden. And I know this crust does not look the prettiest. There's some welts and dents and bumps and stuff, but it is okay because it is going to be covered with chocolate and caramel. It's been about 2 hours and our shortbread is officially cooled off, so let's make our caramel and pour it on top. This caramel recipe is pretty easy, but it does take about 20 minutes to complete. We're going to place all of our ingredients in a saucepan at medium heat. We will then stir all of these ingredients really well, making sure that there are no clumps of brown sugar or any ingredients that did not get fully blended in. We'll then bring the caramel up to a boil. This shouldn't be a full-on boil like you would boil water, but just a simmer to almost boil. We'll let this simmer for about 15 minutes, and then you should notice the color starting to change and a sweet caramel flavor coming off of it. You'll notice the sauce is starting to thicken, so at that point we are going to make a ice bath. If you're unfamiliar with an ice bath, it is just a way to check the temperature of caramels or candy sauces that need to come to a certain consistency, but you don't want it to be too hard. In order to do this, you will just fill up a cup of ice water, then drizzle a small amount of the sauce in it and check to see if you can form a soft ball. If you can form a soft ball, the sauce is done. If it forms a hard ball, then you definitely know that your sauce is done and you want to take that off the heat immediately. Sadly, I don't have an ice machine, so homemade ice it is. You can tell that this is a completely different color than when we first started. You can see it's starting to kind of bubble, boil. So I turned mine down to about a 3. That way I'm not over cooking it. And since I'm in a stainless steel pot, this is going to heat up a lot faster compared to if you're using a Teflon pan. And it's also going to burn a lot faster as well. So we really got to be careful with that. I've got my cup of ice cold water. I'm going to set that aside. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. I think we're almost done. We're gonna turn that to low. So I'm gonna just pour a little bit in here. Drizzle that in. Oh yeah, you can literally already see it's starting to ball up at the top. So this, I believe, is done. Ooh, that's still hot. Oh yeah, that's so done. So take that off of the heat. Our homemade caramel is all done. So while it's still warm, we're gonna pour it over our shortbread and let it cool for 2 hours or overnight. This way it just ensures that the caramel is all the way hardened before we put our chocolate on and cut it up. Now you don't even really need to spread this. It's basically already spread, but I am just going to bring it a little bit further and bring it all the way into this corner over here. Once your caramel is set up, then it is time to make the chocolate topping. The recipe calls for a milk chocolate, but if you prefer a semi-sweet, you could totally use that. In order to make the chocolate sauce, we are going to use a double broiler method. If you haven't done that before, you will just be using a medium saucepan filled with water. Let that come to a simmer. Once it is simmering, add your next bowl on top. This can be if you just want a heat-resistant bowl. You'll then add in your chocolate and your butter, and you'll want to stir this pretty consistently. It's okay if you let it rest for just a minute, but don't let it rest too long because you don't want the chocolate to start to burn. You'll know it is burnt when the chocolate starts to clump up a little bit and just starts to seem not like your regular melted chocolate. If this does happen, don't worry. Go ahead and add in about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of oil, and that should thin it out a little bit in order to save the chocolate. Once your chocolate is all the way melted, it's fun time. Let's spread this on top of our Twix bars. Don't hate me too much because technically this is one giant Twix bar. If you wanted this to be more comparable to your standard Twix bar, you could cut this before putting the chocolate on. Then you could place your bars on top of a wire rack and pour the chocolate over those, so then that way the chocolate drapes along the side. We are doing the easy way and just making one giant one and then individually slicing however big of a piece I want. Once you have your chocolate spread, go ahead and pop those into the fridge until the chocolate is set, and then it's time to eat. It's the next day. I let my Twix bars firm up overnight in the fridge. I'm ready to dice them up and give them a taste. Let's give it a try. Cheers. Now, what in the world am I supposed to do with this many Twix bars? Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more yummy recipes every week. Have a happy day, and I will see you next week.